Well, welcome to the College of Complexes. This is our 481st meeting since we started in February 2009. We put a speaker on every week, a different subject. We require a speaker to take a position on an issue or express a point of view. We don't care what it is. We give the speaker an hour to make up to an hour to make a presentation. If they're over an hour, we cut them off. If anybody interrupts the speaker, we remind the interrupter that we listen only one fool at a time. It's one of our rules. Then we have questions and answers from the audience of the speaker, not speeches. And then we have remarks, rebuttals. Everybody in the audience that wants to gets 5 minutes at the podium here to respond to the speaker said for or against. The speaker gets the last word, gets a comment close the meeting. That's how it works. Anyway, before we put on our speaker, we have time for announcements. Anybody have any announcements they want to make? Now is the time to do it. Oh, I got one. Jim Peeler died. You know, remember Jim Peeler?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, I just found out about it a couple of days ago. And we were out of town for a while. I didn't know it. He died October 11th. And from complications from, he was in the nursing facility, and he's been going downhill ever since. He had heart they couldn't operate on him. He was too weak, and one of those things. Anyway, if you have his number, I was trying to call him and couldn't get him. So anyway, but just so you know, you can look it up or whatever. Jim Peeler is no longer with us. Sorry to hear that. What? And you had an announcement you wanted to make?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on up here.
All right.
He was a very nice man, Jim.
Yeah.
Dallas Phosphorus Forum will be having our next meeting on November 12th at Boca's Restaurant in Richardson, off of 75 and Beltline. What's that?
The name of the restaurant?
Boca's. Yeah, Boca's Italian restaurant. So anyway, our speaker this time is going to be Paul Benson. He's going to talk about crazy crusades. Paul Benson's a real good speaker. He's got a lot of historical background on a lot of things, so this should be a really interesting talk. So anyway, I just invite you all to come. It's $5, and the food's real good.
They moved to the other place?
Yeah, the other place shut down. Yeah. Really good.
Well, next week, Ann Drum and Joanne Ridley will be discussing on money and politics and gerrymandering, two essential democracy reforms. It's on your itinerary. I won't read all this. You can look it up. Anyway, it should be good though, and that's that I have to say. Our speaker tonight, who's walking up here right now, is Jim Gatewood. He's going to talk about on Warren Diamond, Dallas Godfather. It's a book he just wrote, and he's a Dallas historian, author, and member of the Dallas County Review Board. He will discuss his latest work, his latest book, Warren Diamond, Dallas Godfather, which is a part of the forgotten history of Dallas, the most colorful period when crime, law, and order left its mark on American history. He argues and points out in detail that it was during the gay 90s and roaring 20s, when Warren Diamond's gambling cartel ruled Dallas and its politics and earned him an astounding fortune beyond compare. Jim takes us back to a turf war when the Galveston mob was about to take over Diamond's Dallas syndicate. When one of Diamond's men, Benny Binion, took out 4 of Galveston's mob in New Year's Eve party with a shotgun, newspapers call it the Dallas County Massacre. He engages us and carries us back in time to long forgotten places. It reveals the secrets hidden away in the dusty attics of time. Jim will also bring books he authored for those who wish to purchase same. So without further ado, please give a very, very warm welcome to Jim Gatewood.
Thank you, Tom. I know you must be wondering, who is the girl?
No, who's the car?
The car is a 1923 Duesenberg, cost $15,000 in 1923. There's only 15 of them made, and it was guaranteed to do 120 miles an hour on a flat track. The but that was the car.
What's the house?
The house is Warren Diamond's mansion. It still stands today at 4224 Armstrong Parkway.
Some people may be interested to know that the Duesenberg is the source of the phrase, "it's a doozy." Some of us are old enough to hear George Herbert. Duesenberg was a standard of excellence.
Away words.
So who is the girl?
Thank you.
About the girl. Her name is Zodi Fletcher.
We need to hook up.
Zodi Fletcher was the daughter of a gypsy queen. The gypsy king was killed in a knife fight while Zodi was still an embryo in her mother's womb. Her mother was a beautiful woman, and she got a job with Sanger Harris. One of the Sanger brothers kept her as a mistress, and she got a job she oversaw a group of ladies who were making overalls and sewing pieces. Now, her mother trained her like an athlete in the art of sex. And when she told her daughter, she said, now, you're going to use your powers to capture a man that will be wealthy, and you will live in a life of luxury. And this was their goal. Now, when the daughter was the age of 17, they made a list of all the eligible bachelors in Dallas. The first 3 bachelors that she was entangled with backed away because she brought nothing to the table as far as her balance sheet. But then there was this 19-year-old boy, and I'm going to tell you about him a little bit first. His name is Warren Diamond. Warren Diamond's father, William Diamond, left Britain, left Ireland actually, in 1977, wanted by the British police. He was a member of the IRA. And he took passage on a boat called the Caroline. The IRA had it all set up. They had paid his ticket, everything, get him to America, get him out of harm's way. When he was on the boat, it was a 72-day cruise from Dublin, Ireland to New Orleans. And he wasn't on board long when he recognized a girl that he had dated previously when he was in Ireland. And their romance was rekindled on this cruise, and there was a wedding on board. And they disembarked in New Orleans. He had studied to be a pharmacist, and he got a job with the Mercy Catholic Hospital there in New Orleans. While they were there, riots took over the city because the chief of police, an Irishman, had been murdered by the Italian Sicilians. The reason he'd been murdered, he was about to crack the mafia syndicate there in New Orleans. And they did away with him, and it's a shame because it was only 72 years later that Kennedy was killed on the streets of Dallas. Same thing. The mafia was about to be destroyed, and they stuck by history repeating itself. In any event, Warren's older sister was born while they were in New Orleans, and the family decided to move to Dallas. The reason they wanted to move to Dallas, there was so much chaos in the streets, so much bitterness and rival factions fighting. The Italians were slaughtered by the Irish, and it just was a terrible scene. So they decided to come to Dallas because Dallas was the center of a geographical area that produced 1/2 of the world's cotton. And it was very easy to become cotton rich if you were a farmer at that time. So the family moved to Dallas. It was only a few months after they moved here that Warren Diamond was born. Now, we'll skip over Warren Diamond's early life and move to he was age 8. When he was age 8, he had a dear friend that was named Billy Ellis. Billy Ellis's father was the railroad superintendent at our railroad yard here in Dallas. During the summertime, Billy's mother would pack her husband's lunch and let Billy take it to the railroad yards And quite often Warren Diamond would go with him and the two boys would play around the freight yards. But this one particular day it was raining and they had to stay inside, so the boys are in the freight office. And Warren is sitting in a chair looking out the window as a freight train goes by. And each time a car would go by, he'd nod his head, and he was in somewhat of a trance state. Mr. Ellis was watching him. After the train pulled out of sight, Mr. Ellis asked Warren, he said, well, Warren, how many boxcars were in that train? Warren said, 84 boxcars, and the sum total of all the serial numbers on the boxcars was 3,481,000. Well, Mr. Ellis just laughed, and little Billy Ellis took his pocket knife out, a pocket knife, and said, Dad, you should not laugh at Warren. Said he is very good at math, and I'll bet my pocket knife against $1, against your dollar, that if you'll have Earl over there, who was the bookkeeper for the railroad, if you'll have Earl run a tape on the manifest, you'll find that Warren Diamond was correct. The father laughed. He was abused at his son's hair, so Earl did run a tape, and he was correct. Warren Diamond had added all those boxcar serial numbers correctly. You see, he was what they call a savant genius. Now, savant is a word the doctors like to use. You know, it means nothing more than a genius. It's a French word meaning mathematical genius. Now, about the same time that this was recognized in New Orleans, a French sailor brought a pair of dice and introduced the game of craps in New Orleans. Now, craps is a French word meaning hazard, and this game swept the nation at that time. Now, the period is right after the Civil War, it's the Reconstruction era. And I must pause here just a moment because the Ku Klux Klan plays heavily into this story. This is their rally at Fair Park, where there were 30,000 Klan members rallied right here in Dallas in 1923. That's the Klan there. I didn't use his name. Now, I want to pause here just a minute to introduce a new phrase into your history. Some of you, but I doubt if any or many of you are familiar with the Union League. The Union League was formed by the northern politicians after the Civil War. The purpose of the Union League was to come to the southern states and take advantage of the situation. And the situation was, of course, many of the men didn't come home from the war. That meant there was no leader for the plantation. It was up to the wife to lead it. Now, this was the major point. They would come back to the states where the slaves had been emancipated. And the slaves, of course, were not knowledgeable in politics and had never voted. So these men in the Union League, and many of them were attorneys, who carried their papers and their files in a bag made of carpet. And that's where the name carpetbaggers came from. You may remember the scene in Gone with the Wind when Snidely Whiplash is in his carriage and he comes out and he tries to buy Tara the plantation from Scarlett O'Hara. Now this is an enactment of what happened. Of course, Scarlett ran him off. He was trying to buy the plantation for dimes on the dollars, and Scarlett was faced with a $300 tax bill, which she had no way of paying. That's where she took that green velvet curtain, made herself a dress, went into town to seduce Robert Taylor and get her taxes paid. Anyway, this is a better explanation of what's going on. The Union League comes to the southern states and they organize the emancipated slaves' votes, paying them a quarter each to vote like they're told. Now, a quarter at that time would be probably just a little better than a day's wages. So the slaves are being instructed how to vote, and of course the Republican politicians all get into office, and they immediately raise the taxes 300%, so that it's almost impossible for the southern plantation owners to pay their taxes. Now imagine, if you can, that you are a fourth generation plantation owner. Your great-great-grandfather came to the state, took 60 acres, planted cotton, was very profitable. He was able to double and redouble his acreage, and by the time you're raised, you have inherited a growing plantation with slave labor and a very profitable income. And then there's a war. All of a sudden the slaves are emancipated, you have no labor. The leader of the family has probably gone off to war. You're there by yourself. All of a sudden your taxes are raised and you can't pay them. Now, as a result of this, there is a fraternity formed called the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan comes to you with a plan to frighten the slaves and control the vote. You go along with that. Now, this carried, and the South was returned to democratic government, and the Klan went away. But the Klan was raised again during Warren Diamond's administration in 1923, after World War I. And it was raised on the basis of patriotism and Christianity. And it was a very sound, at first, thing, but it got out of control, as you know. Warren Diamond, of course, is Catholic, and he is very opposed to this. And he forms what's called the Dallas Citizens Association. He was one of the founders of that association. And there is a episode in the book where he plays a prank on the Klan to put them in the proper light. And you'll have to read that to find out he did handle that. Incidentally, there is a list of all the Dallas County Klan members in the book. Also, there is a recipe of Benny Binyon's jailhouse chili, which you girls might be interested in. It was a very famous chili, and he served it at his casino in Las Vegas. Getting back to Warren Diamond at age 8, he is a savant genius. Now, he and his friend Ben Whitaker are walking home from school one day, and they're taking the alleys so that they can throw rocks at the neighbors' cats and do things that boys do when they're walking in the alley. And they come upon this group of men in a circle on a blanket, and they're throwing these toys, and they come up there and they look at them, and of course they're dice, and these men are shooting craps. Well, Warren, because there's dots on the dice and numbers, he's sitting there fascinated, and he soon figures out that 7 is the most frequent number that comes up. And he's fascinated with this game. And he goes home and he tells his father about it that evening at supper. And his father explains to him, he says, yes, that is a game that is sweeping the nation. It's called craps, and that's a French word meaning hazard. And he said there are actually casinos in New Orleans. Well, Warren Diamond is fascinated with this. And he built his own, he and Ben Whitaker built their own crap table in Ben Whitaker's loft over his father's livery stable. See, there's no cars at this time in our history, and livery stables they're kind of like used car lots because they trade horses. They'll take your lame horse and trade you a good one, you pay, and so forth and so on. And they also rent horses if you need to rent one while you're in town or whatever. But anyway, Ben Whitaker is fascinated with horses, and later in the book, Ben Whitaker develops off-track betting. And off-track betting, of course, that's your horse parlors. And to make a long story short about Ben Whitaker, when the Magnolia Building is built, he leases the entire 5th floor of the Magnolia Building for a nationwide off-track betting or horse parlor. And a few years later, he sells that horse parlor to a fellow by the name of H.L. Hunt for $1.3 million. Now, I can remember having lunch with my father in the Dallas Athletic Club downtown building. And waiters, when they served you, they would also leave a tout sheet which had the horses they're running, which horses are running today, what time the race, and so forth. And you could sit there as you're eating your lunch and make a bet. And I was so impressed because my father bet $2 and they bought him $33 back. So I was hooked from that time on. I studied top sheets. I loved to go to the races. In any event, it has never been brought out, I don't think, in any book, or at least I've never seen it before. Dallas, Texas, and our fairgrounds, right here where we have the fairgrounds, was one of the #1 racetracks in the nation. And we had several of the fastest horses in the world raised right here in Texas, and there's a list of them in the book. But it was a fascinating time in era. Now, we move fast forward, and Warren Diamond, at the age of 15, well, let's see, first at the age of 11, he got a job working for a drugstore. M.T. Marcellus drugstore. Now, those of you from Oak Cliff would recognize the name Marcellus. Now, Marcellus drugstore, in addition to being a drugstore, had a high-dollar poker game that always ran in the back room. Now, some of the most mischievous and notorious gamblers in the city frequented that card table. Warren Diamond, as a delivery boy, of course, was attracted to this. And as he convinced, he learned the game of poker, he picked up the vocabulary. The men, of course, liked him. He was a very polite, accommodating boy. And they always dealt the cards face down on the table. They wouldn't let the dealer pick them up. It was too easy to deal off the bottom and deal what they call seconds. So they made him lay the cards on the table and deal. Now, of course, one day the dealer comes up, he doesn't show up, he's got the flu. So Warren's been hanging around, and they ask him if he will deal. Now, he's age 11. By the time he's 15, he is a master poker player. He's played in all the card rooms in Dallas, and he's able to meet the large sums of money that it takes to ante, which speaks well for his card playing. And he gets described as the kid who nearly always wins, never shows any emotion, and he was a master card player. At the age of 15, Warren Diamond held 4 queens when he knew the owner of the St. George Hotel held 4 jacks. And Warren Diamond won half interest in the St. George Hotel, right down on Commerce Street, right across from where the Adolphus Hotel is today, at age 15. Now, there was a mafia guy from Galveston, his name was Sam Carlos, came to Dallas to watch Warren Diamond play cards. He watched him for 2 weeks, then he called him aside and said, "I don't know how you're doing it, you're not cheating, but you're always winning." Warren's secret to winning was he knew all the ways to cheat. He knew how to do that. So he always studied his opponent, and when he was able to determine how he was cheating, then he would beat him in his own game. So the Mafia Don has been watching him for 2 weeks, and he says, "I want to take you to New Orleans and get you into some really deep water." He said, "I'll bankroll the game, you'll get half of the winnings, and if you start to lose, I have the right to be a stop loss and go stop playing." So Warren took advantage of that. He spent 10 days in New Orleans and came back with $12,800 his card. That's where he got the money to sit in on a game where he won half interest in the St. George Hotel. Now that he's got half interest in the St. George Hotel, about that time, his mother found a sock in his drawer with $8,000 in it. She told her father, and the father, of course, lectured him and said, "You can't be a gambler." He said, "You'll have to carry a gun." He said, "Someday you'll either kill someone or be killed. And if you're going to be a gambler, you can't put your feet under my table." So Warren left, and he started living in the St. George Hotel. Now, as time progressed, Dallas got organized under Warren Diamond's watch. He started by, the first thing he did, he bought everything necessary for a casino there in the St. George Hotel. He had his connection to it. Equipment was coming out of New Orleans. Then, as men would come to him with their various hotels wanting a casino, he'd say, "Okay, I will provide all the equipment, the startup cash, and the men to run the tables for 25%. You get everything after the 25% is paid to me each night." So, just like watermelons coming up in the ground, these casinos start coming up in Dallas. By the time World War I started, there were 22 casinos managed by Warren Diamond's Corcel here in Dallas. Every convention that was held, Warren Diamond would say, oh, I've got to tell you this story. Early on, as Warren Diamond is roaming the alleys looking for crap games and just getting started, after winning everybody's money in one of these games, they gang up on him and they beat the heck out of him and take their money back. So when he goes home that night, his father asks him what happened, and Warren doesn't tell him much, just that he's been in a fight, that's all. But Warren has a plan. There is a fellow by the name of Arden Paul. He's a French guy who's just gotten out of jail here in Dallas. And his business was collection of gambling debts. And he was an expert fighter. In fact, he had killed a man. That's why he went to jail. It was a fight. And it was considered manslaughter. He had to spend 2 years in jail. But he was back on the street. Now, he's only a few years older than Warren, and Warren looks him up and says, if you'll be my bodyguard and go with me, I'll pay you 10% of what we take. Well, of course, Arden was interested in this, and he came on. Now, Arden trained Warren in this respect. He said, you must never be involved in a fight that you don't start. You start the fight. When the language gets profane and loud and they're in your face, you give them a push. Push them hard. If they come back, you strike them. Now, they discussed, well, shall I use a knife? Arden said no. He said, my experience with knives, they don't hurt that much. And he said, you could win the fight. I've seen men win the fight with a knife and bleed out later and die. He said, we don't use knives. Warren said, well, what about a gun? He said, no, a gun will get you in trouble, so that'll kill someone. He said, then you'll do time in jail. He said, what you want is brass knuckles. So he had Warren's hand fitted with some brass knuckles. He said, now when the shouting starts, you reach down in your pocket and get those brass knuckles on your right hand. And when you decide there's going to be a fight, you push that opponent with everything you've got with your left hand. Now, if he comes back without his knife, you go ahead and whack him. So those knuckles will peel the hide right off of his skull, and he'll start bleeding profusely. He'll go down, he'll be unconscious. Everybody will be impressed. Now, if he comes at you with a knife, and he knows what he's doing, he's going to point that knife right at your eye, because that'll make you flinch back. But you be prepared. Make a blade out of your hand, carry that knife, and then here you've got him wide open, and you come at him with your knuckles. Well, it wasn't if that happened, it was just a matter of time. Warren and Arden Paul had heard of a crap game in a cotton exchange warehouse, and it would be a high-dollar crap game. So they went, and sure enough, there was an argument after the game was over. And Warren was accused of using loaded knives, which wasn't the case. And a fellow by the name of Joe Martino came at Warren, and just as he had practiced, just like a ballet step, and out came the brass knucks. He struck Joe, and of course he peeled the eye, and his skull showed for a minute, and then the blood gushed forward. Well, I'm glad you guys finished eating. Anyway, he went down, and Warren and Arden Paul strutted off into the night, and the word went out across Dallas, do not fool with Warren Diamond. So he had made his point. But that was his weapon. In fact, from then on, a lot of times they called him Knuckles Diamond. Now, in 1904, Warren Diamond and Ben Whitaker were riding the train back from Chicago. They had just talked to Al Capone's men about setting up a off-track betting, a horse parlor here in Dallas. And there was a big ruckus going on in the car next to him. So Joe Martinez, I've got to tell you this story about Joe Martinez. Joe Martinez is the name of the man that Warren Diamond hit with the brass knuckles. And the next morning at breakfast, he told Art and Paul, he said, "Go see about that man, see if he's seen a doctor, if he's stitched up, if he needs any help financially." Well, Art and Paul came back and said, "There are two Martino brothers and a widowed mother." So Warren said, "Well, bring him in, I want to talk to him." So the next morning at breakfast, Warren Diamond is sitting there, Art and Paul comes in, and Joe Martino is with him. He just has kind of a towel wrapped around his head, and you can see the blood coming through it. They sit at the table, and Warren Diamond asked him, he said, "Joe, how much money did you lose in the drug deal?" Joe said, "I lost a week's wages, $6. Warren Diamond asked him, he said, "Joe, how would you like to go to work for me for $20 a week?" Joe said, "Who do I have to kill?" No, Joe said, "You don't have to kill anybody." He said, "What I need is a connection in the Italian patch." You see, at that time in our history, the Italians were coming into Dallas. They'd get off the boat in Galveston, catch the train to Dallas, and come to what they call the Italian patch. The reason was they could only speak Italian, so they had to come to a place where they were being understood. And Warren Diamond realizes the importance of having friends in the Italian patch because he wants to control the boat of Italians. So this is what he tells Joe Martino, and Joe goes to work for him for $20 a week. And the first thing that he brings back to Warren Diamond's table is the Casa Nostra, the Black Hand, has just killed an Italian grocer and his 9-year-old daughter because the grocer did not pay the demand of $1,000 to be left alone. Arden Paul is sitting at the table. And Warren Diamond tells Arden, he said, "Take Charlie Grandstaff and Robert Griffith with you to the Italian patch. Find out who this Casa Nostra person is, or who they are, and take care of it." It was about 3 or 4 days later, 2 bodies were found on the railroad tracks in the freight yards. But they'd been run over by a freight train and were unidentifiable. But there was never any more trouble in the Italian patch from the Black Hand. Well, Warren Diamond made a lot of friends in the Italian patch as a result of that. Then in 1893, there was a financial panic. What had happened, there was an invasion that moved up out of Mexico, came into Texas and all through the southern part of the United States. A little bug called the boll weevil, and he ruined the cotton crop. Dallas, of course, being cotton rich, and there was no crop, the banks failed. Literally hundreds of Italian homes were being foreclosed on. Warren Diamond talked to Ben Whitaker, who was studying law at the time, and he said, "Prepare an instrument whereby we can assume and take control of the equity position that the Italian family has in their property by bringing the loan current at the bank, and that the Italian family in turn can then pay rent based on what they can afford to pay until this is all over, and then they can buy their house back or become tenants or whatever they want to do." Now, as a result of this, literally hundreds of Italian families were able to stay in their home. But the next thing that happened was wintertime came. And it was a cold winter in 1894. The Trinity River froze solid. They were taking their horses and buggies and driving them across the river. Of course, the kids were skating on the river. Those kids that didn't have skates could run and slide and see who could slide the furthest. There was a big party. They built bonfires all along the sides of the Trinity. But the nice part about it was that hard freeze killed all the boll weevils. Starting to say bed bugs, probably kills the bed bugs. But the problem that came with that cold weather was that the people in the coal business hadn't recovered yet. They didn't have enough money to buy more coal. And coal was there was no natural gas at that time. That's what we were burning here in Dallas, was coal to keep warm in the wintertime, or wood. So Warren Diamond again made an instrument whereby the people in the coal business could get their credit at the bank, and also his tenants who needed help could get their coal, so everybody stayed warm in the winter. And Warren Diamond was insolvent now with the Italian families, and this is when they started referring to him as the Dallas Godfather. And he always was able to control the Italian vote, and he became a kingmaker. If you wanted to go into politics here in Dallas, you come and talk to Warren Diamond. If he liked you, he would back you, and chances are you get voted. And everything was running pretty good until the Ku Klux Klan came in the 20s, and they started doing things their way. In fact, they won all the seats in the county in 1922. And Warren Diamond came up with a plan to embarrass them and put them in the spot, and you'll read about it in the book. But I want to continue on now and go to after 1904, and they're coming back from Chicago, and they've got the franchise for off-track betting in Dallas. And there's this ruckus going on in the next car. And they send Joe Martino in. See, he took Joe with him now every time he went to Chicago or the place, because Joe spoke Italian. They'd go right to the heart of wherever the mafia control was. And Warren worked with him. And he got these conventions to come to Dallas. What he found out in the next car was the Confederate veterans of the Civil War were planning their convention. So Warren Diamond told Joe Martinez, he said, find out who the chairman is of the committee, bring him in. So Joe came back with this fellow, and make a long story short, Warren Diamond bribed him and got the convention here in Dallas. Now, if you could imagine, here's Dallas, a town of 38,000 in 1904. We've got 114,000 veterans coming to Dallas for their convention. Where are they going to stay? We've got 11 hotels for 600 rooms. Here's what they did. There was a lake called Ben Long Lake. It's where Delhi Stadium used to stand. They had Mexican labor go out and clear the shores all the way around the lake. Then they set up a tent city, and you got a flag for whatever your regiment or your battalion was, so that as a veteran, when you came, you could go to your flag, and that's where all your buddies were. They had tents set up for you. They had a place for your fires where you could barbecue and cook. And it was a tremendous success. Not only was it a tremendous success, and we've got pictures of the parade and the artillery and the speeches and whatnot, but those veterans were standing 4 and 5 deep trying to get to Warren Diamond's crap tables. After they left, they had a walking safe probably about half the size of this room in the St. George Hotel. They really didn't like to use the banks. They put money in banks under fictitious names because they didn't want anybody knowing how much they were making. And the Galveston mob down there had some idea, and they had plans to take over Dallas. Anyway, after that convention, their safe in the room was full of money, and they had 26 canvas bags with $50,000 each and a padlock on them outside the room. It was a tremendous success, and Warren Diamond saw the importance of having conventions here in Dallas. And Dallas got the name as the convention city. We beat out Boston, we beat out Los Angeles, San Francisco, Philadelphia, any place that just, you didn't have a chance. Warren Diamond sent Joe Martinez up there with an unlimited charge account, expense account. He could buy and find out what needed to be done. We've got the business here in Dallas. And 1912, the largest concrete structure in the world was completed here in Dallas, the Oak Cliff Viaduct. As a result of that, we got a convention, the National Automobile Association. Automobiles came in from all over the United States on flat cars. We had over 1,000 automobiles backed up over on the other side of the river there in Oak Cliff to have a parade, 4 abreast, come down through downtown Dallas. We have pictures of this in the book. It's the same thing all over again. Everybody was standing 3 and 4 deep to get to Warren Diamond's scrap tables. They had this tremendous amount of money and all these canvas bags full of money and 4 automobiles. And Warren Diamond got his pick. He picked out a white Mormon sedan. But the nice dealers told him, he said, Warren said, these automobile owners would lose all their money and they'd get the title of their car, we'd tell them what it was worth, and they'd shoot for that. So we want 4 cars. But anyway, the convention business is going real good. Now, Warren Diamond had a casino built on Camp Street. Camp Street was the name of San Jacinto Street before they changed it to San Jacinto. And he had a casino built down there at the end of the street, which was raided. And the night that it was raided, he was put in jail. There was an escape tunnel to get out, and he saw to it that all these people got out, but he stayed because he figured that he'd pay a fine and everything would be okay. Well, there was a very zealous judge that he got in front of, and he did have to pay a fine plus a 2-year jail sentence. Now, his attorney, Murray Hughes, told him not to worry, that he would see that there would be some malfunction in the warrant or something, but that he wouldn't have to do any jail time. But he was in the Dallas County Jail here. Now, Warren Diamond, this girl, Zodi Fletcher, had captured him when he was 19 years old. Now Warren is in jail, and she doesn't come to see him. But his cousin who, well, they had not quite a teenage affair when Warren was 12, and she never got over it. She loved him. And she came to see him while he was in jail. And Warren asked how she was getting along, and she said, miserably. She said, my husband is a brute, and I don't know what to do about it. Warren said, don't worry, I'll send one of my men to talk to him. Evidently he did, because the husband left or he disappeared and he was never heard from again. Well, in the meantime, Warren is in jail for a little over 2 months, and Zodi gets involved with her parents over in Fort Worth, and I've got to tell you just a bit of where all this information is coming from, because it's not in any books, it's not on the internet. I was speaking to the Plano Rotary Club. It's been about 4 years ago. I mentioned the fact there's a book in the pipeline about Warren Diamond. I ran into Warren Diamond because he was in charge of the gambling cartel that Betty Binion worked for, and he was Betty Binion's mentor. So this introduced me to Warren Diamond, and I knew that it was a facet of Dallas history that was lost. So I was determined to write a book about him, and I made this announcement. This elderly gentleman waited until everybody had left. We were the only 2 people in the room. And he said, Mr. Gatewood, he said, I am Warren Diamond's step-grandson. He said, Nellie Diamond, who was his second wife, had 2 children. Of course, I was one of them. He said, Warren Diamond and his wife, Zodi, were never able to have any children. Now, he's telling, the step-grandson is telling me, Warren Diamond built a home for me and for my sister. He built 2 fine homes for the grandchildren, for the stepchildren that he got when he married Nellie Diamond, who was his cousin. He and Nellie Diamond lived together quite happily. That was a very successful marriage. Anyway, going back, where was I? Let's see. We just won 4 automobiles at the American Auto Association. Now, Carlos Barcelos, Mafia Don in Galveston, has been watching Dallas with a great deal of interest. And Warren Diamond comes downstairs in the St. George Hotel to breakfast. And Bill Decker, the deputy sheriff at the time, and another deputy sheriff, Ed Castor, are waiting for him. And he knows both of them. They come in, sit down, and have coffee. And Bill says, Warren, we have some bad news. He said, Arden Paul and Robert Griffin were found just outside the Dallas County city limits in Tarrant County, tied to a fence post with barbed wire, a bullet in the back of their head. Now, Penny Penny, in the meantime, had come to work for Warren Diamond. He was in charge of all bootleg whiskey in Dallas. And Penny was aware of this, and they were Galveston Mob was interfering with his whiskey business here in Dallas. Penny learned that the 4 members of the Galveston gang that were here in Dallas causing all the trouble were going to attend a New Year's Eve party at the Tip Top Club here, which is located out close to Fair Park. And there was a tailor shop on the ground floor, a cleaning establishment called Tip Top Tailors. And there was a club, it's a 3-story building, a club on the top floor called the Tip Top Club. Then there was a garden type area up on the top of the building. And Benny found out that there was going to be a New Year's Eve party, and that the Galveston Mob had invited all the girls from the Diamond Dance Pyramid Club downtown Dallas. So Benny makes arrangements. He gets a driver for a car, and he has what's called a whippet. A whippet is a shotgun that's had the stock cut off, and the barrel is short. The whole thing is about this long. And it's got a leather strap on the back, and you run your arm through that leather strap, and it hangs down beside your coat, and you can't see it. It's under your coat. But you can go anywhere you want to and dunk a little bit and whip it out. That's why they call it a whippet. So Benny has got a 12-gauge shotgun that's a whippet. It's a pump shotgun that holds 5 rounds. The night of the afternoon of the New Year's Eve party, he goes up to the garden room up on the top of the floor, and he leaves boxes of cherry bombs. Now, cherry bombs, for you girls, those are just firecrackers. Oh, they're not quite as big as a golf ball. Boy, when they go off, they really bang. And he leaves this around on the top floor because he knows there will be some enterprising New Year's Eve celebrants up there that will start throwing those off the top of the building when the clock strikes 12. And he waits, and his car pulls up in the alley behind the Tip Top Club, and he goes in through the kitchen to the service elevator. And it's about 5 minutes to 12. He comes out on the ballroom floor. He steps out of the kitchen, and his 4 marks are right there only a few yards away from him. He looks at the back of the room, and it's almost 12 o'clock. 5 minutes strikes 12, and it starts blowing. Well, horns start blowing, and sure enough, people start throwing those cherry bombs off the top of the roof, and they're banging. Then he steps forward, he gets to point blank range, he brings that shotgun out, and he kills 4 men. And just about the same time that I take to talk about it, with a pump shotgun. Then he does a very unorthodox thing. Usually, a hitman like that will leave the scene just almost immediately. But then he takes time to scoop down and scoop up the 5 empty shotgun shells, balls that are on the floor, and drops them in his pocket. Now what that means, the only witnesses that saw him, he's got a fedora pulled low and a handkerchief around his face and an overcoat collar turned up. Impossible to recognize him. Now there's not even the empty shotgun holes on the floor. All they know is they've got 4 corpses there that are full of buckshot. He leaves and goes back down the elevator. The Dallas newspapers call it the Dallas County Massacre. And the strange thing about it is only 2 months later, in February of 1930, Al Capone pulls off the St. Valentine's Massacre. But he got all the publicity. He's the one that's in the books. But now Benny's Massacre is in the books. This thwarted the attempted takeover by the Galveston mob. They had a truce, and the Galveston mob had built the Southland Hotel, and Benny Binion and Warren Diamond's gambling cartel bought the Southland Hotel. Now, things go along real good. Dallas is under control and making money like you would not believe. But in 1932, Warren Diamond was diagnosed as having terminal cancer. He goes to Baylor Hospital, and he's been diagnosed and told he's got terminal cancer. He's in his room by himself. He gets up and dresses, goes downstairs, calls a taxi cab, catches the cab home, gets out to his house, walks right by his wife, goes upstairs to the bathroom, takes a .38 automatic, and commits suicide. Before he did that, he left all his gambling business to Benny Binion. And Benny Binion, at the age of 23, was catapulted to the #1 man in the Dallas underworld. And he and Sheriff Decker ran Dallas County. This is great Dallas and Texas history.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to get it in a book. I have the books out there on the table. And if you'd like to have one autographed, they're $20 each. And also, I've written 11 books down on Dallas County. I've got most of them out there. I want to thank you so much for having me. If you have anything- If anyone has a question, I'll try to answer.
You can sit there and answer questions now. Who wants to be first?
Who published your book?
Laney Corporation.
Question, the Binions, I guess those are the guys that moved on to Las Vegas?
Say,
I said the Binions, I guess those are the guys that moved on to Las
Yeah.
Vegas?
Right.
yes.
I figured as much.
The golden nugget.
Don't you want to ask him about something about pots or?
Oh, well, my brother and I were talking one time, since you're an old Dallas guy, Pops that used to run the strip joints in town. Had the Athens Strip and the Landing Strip and all those other places. What was his last name?
I have no idea. Sorry, I can't help you.
Okay.
Binion was run out of here and was told to go to
Wait, get
Vegas
the-
by,
Wait, get
was
the
it Decker?
Wait, you have a question. Sure.
Was it Decker that ran Binion out of here and told him to go to Vegas? Who was it?
Will Wilson was the district attorney, is dedicated enemy. And it was federal income tax evasion he got way out of Dallas. He was running policy wheels. His profit was 80%, and he was reporting the profit as an income, as an expense instead of profit. Took it twisted around. They figured it out. He had $100,000 in his pocket to bribe the judge. The FBI found out about it, and he didn't get to bribe the judge, so he had to go to jail. That's why I left Dallas.
How many of the mob families that you mentioned in the book, how many of those figures or their families are still here in Dallas today?
The mafia families,
Right.
I don't think any of them left.
No, there's.
None of them left, huh? Okay.
No reason to name them.
So they're all named in the book?
Not in this book, but they're in the book about the assassination.
Okay.
Or it's the, It's the Ku Klux Klan that's listed this way.
Ah, okay.
Or the Dallas County Ku Klux Klan.
You had alluded to the assassination earlier in your talk, Kennedy. I think I heard you say Kennedy assassination. Where in the line is, from Binion forward, does Jack Ruby have any association at all with that particular line of mobsters and what have you?
Oh, absolutely. That happened after Brendan left. In fact, there was a mafia invasion of Dallas. And Jack Ruby was the spirit that set up the beachhead. He was instructed to buy up taverns and honky tonks in Dallas and turn them into sparkling strip joints. And he did.
So he was the head of, did he answer to a much higher authority, or was he pretty much his own show?
I'm sorry, was who?
Did Ruby
Oh, Ruby.
answer to a higher authority, or was he pretty much his own show?
Well, he was very well taken care of the way he was functioning. And of course, when the assassination took place, the head of the mafia, Sam Giancana, called him on the phone and said, you either take Oswald out or else, because Oswald was being interrogated. Oswald was in a position that if he talked, he could bring down the entire mafia empire. So Ruby was instructed to take him out, and of course he spent the rest of his life in jail.
Nathan Posner wrote a book called Case Closed, and Vincent Bugliosi wrote another book which eviscerated conspiracy theories. He met about 300 lawyers in Dallas to promote his book. Bugliosi did. He asked the people at the Bilo Mansion, the lawyers, how many of you think that there was conspiracy? About 80% of the audience raised their hand. He says, now keep your hand up if you've read the Warren Report. And all but three put their hands down. I have a very hard time believing that Robert Kennedy, whose brother was murdered, would actually, in some manner, redirect the investigation of the conspiracy theories and would allow his brother's killers to go free. Inconceivable to me.
Was that a question?
Yes. What do you think about that?
I have no argument with any of that.
Anybody else?
Have you traced these criminal elements from back then up until today, and what have you found?
Well, that's not my job to trace it, but I'm only aware of the fact that the families are still here.
I guess, is that all the questions?
Dallas, you say, was the center of all of this gambling empire and mafia activity, or this guy's activity. How did that compare to what was going on in Austin at the time? And how many of them were even situated in Austin to impact the legislative branch down there?
Well, Austin's not out of my territory. I just try to cover Dallas, but I'm sure that things were going on in Austin the same.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, the law is alone.
I remember years ago that, and I forget his name, the governor of Florida hired a special police unit to drive or to pursue the mafia that was very heavily involved in Miami. And from what I have read, they moved their financial interests into Dallas, and I think in the Republic National Bank. Do you know anything about all that?
I'm not familiar with Republic National Bank, but I know the Mafia had their own bank here in Dallas, but it was a Virgin State Bank on Ross Avenue.
Do you have any additional stories regarding H.L. Hunt in relation to this general topic?
Well, of course, H.L. Hunt bought Ben Whitaker's bookie joint on the 5th floor of the Magnolia Building, paid him $1.3 million for it. That's when I spoke about my father and I having lunch, and the waiter bought a top sheet. That was Hunt's bookie shop.
What happened to gorgeous Mrs. Diamond? Mrs. Diamond? The what?
Oh, Mrs. Diamond,
The what? I know she died in 1960.
she was living in an apartment house and on flannel pajamas, backed up too close to the heater. They caught her on fire. She got a horrible death.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Mrs. Nellie?
No, the wife.
That was Nellie Diamond.
Any more questions?
The naked lady on the front of your book. Is that his mother or one of his mistresses or what? I lost a little track there.
That was Diamond's wife.
That was Diamond's wife. The first one or the second one?
No, he only
First
had
one.
one. No, he had two.
First
He had
one.
two? Okay.
So that was, and they couldn't have children, or what's the story there?
They didn't have any.
Yeah. And did he, you mentioned step grandchildren, did he ever father any children or no?
No.
Okay, so, thank you.
I think we're out of questions. You get to sit down.
Oh, good.
Now it's your turn to talk, so anybody has anything they want to say, either for or against what the speaker has to say, is, you have 5 minutes, come on up here. Who wants to be first? I can't believe this. Our speaker did such a great job, there's no comments. Nothing. Anybody has anything to say for or against what the speaker has told us tonight?
I just want to say, I think he's fascinating.
Come on up here.
No, I'm not going to come
she's
up
not
there.
coming up
Just
there.
hand me the microphone. I think he's fascinating,
Yeah.
and I've bought almost every book that
Yeah,
I
we
can,
have those.
and I want him to keep writing. And he's going to be offering a course at Richland, I think.
Oh,
This
really?
summer.
He already has.
He already has it. They will do it again.
Oh, you did, Kevin?
I did.
It's your turn, Ken.
Good for you.
I don't have anything to say to
Get
that.
Tom in there.
I guess that's it. Tom?
Nobody has anything to say? We covered
Jim is
everything?
such a hard act to follow.
Well, before, comments on whether you're for or against what he had to say. I think he's a great speaker.
I think it is too, that's why
And, anyway, that's it for tonight then.
Oh, good, we can go home.
Yes, you can go home. But Jim's out there, he has a collection of books there, you can get one for tonight if you want. And you can talk to him and they kick us out of here at 10 o'clock, just so you know. Anyway, see you all next week, I hope, hopefully.